Hey everyone! Wow, it's great to be with you today. Just wanted to do a quick video and talk a little bit about the epic speech that Donald Trump gave last night to a joint session of Congress. I think it's the best speech I can remember in my lifetime, and there's two that really stand out to me as being really big speeches that really launched the careers of two previous politicians onto the national stage. And one of those speeches was the speech that Bill Clinton gave at the Democratic convention, and I believe it was '88. Not that I like Bill Clinton, I despise the man, but it was a pretty good speech. Ronald Reagan's speech at the Republican convention in '76 was also, I'll never forget that, because as soon as he gave the speech, I think that everybody thought, wow, that is the guy that we should have nominated right there. He should be the GOP candidate in this election. But he wasn't. But he did come back in 1980, and he was the man. And I think that there was no doubt after that '76 speech that Ronald Reagan was going to be the man in 1980, and as it turned out, he was. But this speech that Donald Trump gave last night, he's not quite the orator that, say, a Clinton or a Reagan is. But I actually enjoyed the speech more because it was really brilliantly done, because I looked at two things really, beside the aesthetic things, which Donald Trump is very good at because he was on TV for 10, 11, 12 years, whatever, with his TV show. But it was the words and the tone. If you looked at the words, they were tough. But he balanced it with the right tone. He wasn't mean, and he didn't just pick on Democrats and say, yeah, well, these folks over here, the Democrats, they're the cause of all of our problems. He didn't do that. He really did a good job, I think, of basically saying to the Democrats, hey, I welcome you in. Hey, let's all be a part of this together to get things right. And my initial reaction to just the overall of the speech was that it really seemed to me like Donald Trump was almost like a new CEO who had been brought into a corporation that had just filed bankruptcy, where every one of their most recent products had been failures in the marketplace, and the company had just taken a serious dive, and so a new CEO was brought in to fix things. And that's how he appeared to me. He appeared to be almost like a CEO who was brought in to a major corporation to get it back on the right track, get it going in the right direction. And in the speech, of course, he pointed out, and again, he didn't specify as Democrats, he pointed out, though, all the failed policies of the past 30 years or more. Failed policies on immigration, on taxation, on environmental regulation, on foreign policy, on domestic policy. It's just he went down the line and he hit a lot of different topics, and he pointed out the failures of the policies that we have been pursuing, and then he pointed out the solution to solving the problems that we created and the correct course of action to get things moving back in the correct direction. And so he was really calling out these people, and I'm sure it was a very tough speech to sit through if you were in the chamber and you were a member of Congress, Republican or Democrat, because here's Donald Trump up there on the stage at the podium looking at you and telling you why you have taken this country so badly into the wrong direction. And he was calling them out, essentially. But he did it with the tone. He balanced the tone against the tough words, and it was a beautiful mixture, because it was just perfect. I don't think he could have done it any better. I don't think anyone could have done it any better. It was absolutely epic, absolutely epic. And there's no question that I saw something else last night. You know, as Donald Trump went through the primary process, he was rancorous, cantankerous. He was funny. He was smart alecky. He was combative. He was aggressive. He was all these things, which brought him a lot of attention. And then, as he campaigned against Hillary, he toned it back a bit. But now that we see in his first address to the joint session of Congress how smart this guy really is, because there was none of that. So this tells you that he's very, very tuned in to exactly how he needed to present himself and his message, both as a candidate to win the Republican primary, as a candidate in the general, and then as president. He's able to really identify how you have to present yourself in all three of those scenarios, and he did a masterful job, and has done a masterful job in all three of those positions that he's been in. And I think he really proved last night that he's thinking on a much higher level than those around him, probably even his advisors or any of us who've been watching him, and even those of us who have been big supporters. He did an amazing job. I don't think he could have done any better. Certainly, it's one of the best speeches I think I've ever seen. I was hanging on every word. He just did a fantastic job. And I don't know what live stream you all were watching, but fortunately the live stream I was watching, they kept going and panning into the audience so that we could see Schumer and Pelosi and Mitch McConnell. Of course, we could all see Paul Ryan because he was sitting right there behind Trump. And of course, Paul Ryan, he looks like the little kid from the Addams Family. He's got the little thing going here, but he's got the big ears. Whatever his name was, he just reminds me of that guy. And I don't like Paul Ryan, and I guess most of you know that. I think a lot of the things Trump said last night made him cringe, but I think he understands the situation, and he knows he better get on board and ride the train, because I think he understands the political consequences if he does not. So Trump is absolutely amazing, and I'm just so looking forward to the next 4 and hopefully 8 years, because he truly is. He's a master. He's a master communicator, and he is certainly understands how to speak to regular Americans. And I think last night was epic because there's a lot of Democrats, a lot of independents, a lot of people who watched that speech last night who've never really paid much attention to anything he said. They've just been listening to New York Times and MSNBC and the lamestream media. But for those who tuned in last night, got to hear the words coming directly out of his mouth. They got to see that he points out problems and solutions, and he showed a level of leadership that I haven't seen since Ronald Reagan. I mean, his leadership qualities are epic, absolutely epic, and that's what good leaders do. They get people to support them, even people who may have not supported them in the past. I promise you, Donald Trump picked up a lot of supporters last night, many of them Democrats. So, epic speech. I give it a 10 across the board, and I think we are definitely heading on the right track. And I think Donald Trump is not only going to change America for the better, he's going to change the world. Because I promise you that Marine Le Pen, Geert Wilders were watching that, probably Merkel, probably a lot of people in Europe watching that speech last night, and he took them to school. And for those who are part of the global movement against globalism, the nationalist movement that's happening right now, I think that they benefited probably more from that speech than anyone, because I think you'll see a lot of the themes and in the way that Donald Trump did his presentation between words and tone. I think that this is going to be something that Marine Le Pen is going to pick up on, because that's something she probably needs to work on. Her wording and her ideas are great, but she's comes off a bit hostile, and so to the moderates, they are not supporting her quite the way that Donald Trump was getting support from moderates here. Geert Wilders is a little more measured, and more like a Trump. Marine Le Pen can still win in France, but I think that she has to learn something from Donald Trump last night, that you can have the tough words, but you have to measure it with the correct tone. And if you put those two things together correctly, you can really you can really reach people who may not be your solid supporters. Your solid supporters and Marine Le Pen's solid supporters are going to be there, but for her to win that general election, once she wins the first part, she has to win in the runoff, and that's where she could have issues. And this is where learning something from Trump last night and the tone of how she delivers her speeches could have a major effect on whether or not she ends up being the next president of France. I think Marine Le Pen probably watched that speech last night with her translator, of course, and I think that she probably learned some things. So anyway, it's absolutely fantastic. It was a masterful speech, and I couldn't be happier. And I hope all you got to watch it. If you didn't, I highly suggest you YouTube it and watch the speech. It's absolutely epic, and I think you'll really enjoy it as much as I did. So y'all have a good day, and we keep moving forward from here. And it's a great day to be an American. It's a great time to be living in America, and it's incredible to watch this international movement. Again, Trump's not just going to change America. Donald Trump is going to change the world for the better. All right, you guys, take care.